So hello guys and welcome back. So I think the full Duskmourn spoiler is now out and checking on some of the new cards, we see that we have really like having like a lot of ideas for deck construction, especially in the standard format. But for now, just to look on some of a somewhat updated deck archetypes, and one of which that I've chosen today for this video feature is the Gruul Aggro deck. So we know that Gruul prowess, or basically mono red prowess, is now very popular in the metagame of standard, wherein mostly or a very cheap way to say as a rank up deck in MTG Arena. And we have to see again some of the variants of this build, including this one that I'm going to share with you guys. And again, welcome back. So if you're new to the channel, we are somewhat discussing of the possible deck build for standard with Duskmourn set, and we do use this usually whenever a new set is about to be released. And for this one, you check this list as some have come up with. So we have 26 creatures, 6 enchantments, 4 instants, 2 sorceries, and 22 lands. So see here as some of which are not yet legal to play in the format, but pretty soon we'll see that having this bordered will be replaced by the black bordered. So we check on the grid view. Seen here are your 11 1-drops, 7 2-drops, and not 7 but rather 11 also for the 2-drops, and this one will be your Zudu 3rd drop on this build. So let's take a look at the lineup. First off is the popular card for the mono red, the Heartfire Hero, which is also adapted here. It's his ability that's very much aggressive and very heavy, or let's say very easy to pump out because of this ability of the Valiant. So having this trigger would put it some counter, and in the mono red build they have several ways to pump this up with the Monstrous Rage, some of the 1 mana cost pump effect, and the counter will be very easy to have this as a permanent pump for them, for the hero. And at the same time, when it dies in spot removals or in combat damage, it deal equal damage to equal to its power to each opponent. So that's another added damage effect, which is very much relevant in most aggro decks. So we have 4 of these copies in the deck. I'll explain later on why it's important to have this one as a 1-drop consideration. And next is also 4 copies of Monasari Sphere. This is again a Zudu auto include for this build. It is only giving you a hasty with prowess, but also benefit most with or non-land, or I mean non-creature spells. And I've also considered 3 copies of the new card Norin Swift Revivalist. This ability does not only is just a 1 to cast 2/1, but it has a ability that whenever a creature you control becomes black, you may exile it and you may play that card from exile this turn. So having that to exile, meaning that it cannot die in combat. For example, it becomes black by a bigger creature, so just exile it and then cast it after the post-combat step. And also relevance with this ability is your next creature in this lineup, the 2-drop Kyrian Beastcaller. So this is just not only an ordinary 2/2, but whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1 counter on Kyrian Beastcaller. So those creatures that somewhat has been exiled by Norin's ability when it's black, so casting that again from exile would also trigger this ability of Kyrian Beastcaller. So also with that ability, those +1 counters would also benefit your other creatures once it dies, as you can distribute these +1 counters among any number of target creatures you control, where X is the number of +1 counters. And also this ability would also trigger your Heartfire Hero whenever becomes a target of an ability you control. So most or benefits of this are very much relevant in this kind of deck build. And that with other added creature in the 2-drop are the return of Radas Firebrand from Dominar United. I consider this one because its ability that's not only a 3/1, but it can fend off blocker for your opponent, because a target creature defending player controls with power less than Rada's Firebrand's power can't block this turn. So it's also very relevant, being an aggro deck, that you can deal huge chunks of damage early on, and this ability would get you near to have a free damage choice. More so if this creature is pumped with these +1 counters, it can even be more very reliable and hard to block. And a new 2-drop that I'm considered in this deck is also a haste creature, your copies of Wildfire Wickerfox. So just a 2 cost 3/2 with haste, but its benefit later on is that when it's having Delirium, or when you have 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyards, you get to have this 1/1 and gains trample. So having 2 cost 4/3 haste trampler would be also a very good attacker in the late game. In a similar fashion, what I've said as a pseudo 3-drop is your Yabimaya Iconoclast. This is just a 2 cost 3/2 trampler, but when you have it kicker, it becomes 4/3 trampler with haste, which is somewhat a similar ability or similar stats with Delirium Wildfire Wickerfox. So this is also 4 copies in the deck, which is important as you get to have this curve in your feature lineup. Now for your enchantments, this is again, I think, is the very important way to pump your creatures, are your 4 copies of Innkeeper's Talent. This can also benefit to pump up those relevant Harper heroes, your Rada's Firebrand, and even your Quirion the Scholar, which this ability that this +1 counters can be used later on with this level 1 talent. And later on, you can have extra mana to pump with the level 2 effect, where in prevents you control with counters on the hub ward 1, and can also have this level 4 later on. You can good mana sink if ever the mini game comes to hand. So that's his 4 copies. We have also considered copies of Demonic Locus, which can be platted for 1, and then having this one to enchant creature +1 and must finish in Trampler, and when it is placed into a graveyard from the battlefield, you will draw a card. This also fits well to have an enchantment aura that can add to the Delirium requirement of Wildfire Wickerfox. Now for your instance, I decided to just do some variants here, but I think it's still subject to changes. We have a new card, Betrayer's Bargain. This is considered 1 copy in the deck. This ability to pay for or sacrifice a creature or enchantment. It can deal 5 damage to a creature, and then that could also exile that creature if it would die this turn. So at instant speed, you can deal with a Sholdred, for example, or any creature with a 5 toughness to have them removed from the game, so that your damaged creatures can get in. Also, copies of Blunting Strike were added with 2 copies, so it can also deal 3 damage to any target. It can also deal 3 damage to the dome for opponent if needed. And a copy of Brawl Treatment, which can help out having a creature gain Hexproof until end of turn, and also creating a Royal Roll token attached to that creature, and can trigger also, of course, Heartfire Hero. And for your last copies, for your sorceries, are also sort of a removal in the deck. These are the new cards, Beastie Beatdown. It is a 1 green and red sorcery that can choose target creature control and target creature opponent controls. Then those creatures deal damage equal to its power to an opponent you control, opponent and creature controls. And a bonus, if we have Delirium, you can put 2% counters on a creature you control that has to deal this power damage. And for your lands lineup, again, those are the current mana fix for red-green. I've considered also 4 copies of the new card, Torchspire Birch, wherein it doesn't come to play top, but its only requirement is that if you have Mountain or Forest, you can produce your green mana per se. So we have 4 copies of Forest and the basic land also with the Mountain, 4 copies in the main deck, with a splash of basic Rock Face Village that can have this effect, also a pump for our mouse creature you control, in which this one we only have a good target here with Heartfire Hero as your way to have them +0 in haste, and also can be pumped with this ability. And that's probably it for the total of your lands. That is 22 in the main deck. Let's check on the color distribution and average mana value. It's mostly red with 25 and green is 19, but the producers is pretty much aligned with this. We have 18 for red producers and 16 for green. Average mana value 1.68 is very much curved and very low. Can also just stabilize for 3 mana in the deck on your board. And the only token we have here is the roll token or the royal token. This is produced by the royal treatment instant. So I think that's pretty much it for this. This is your initial look of the Gruul Aggro. As I can suggested, this might be like a slower version as compared to that of the mono red. But I think the variance of having green is making sure that you have a good mid game up to the late game once your initial assault was dealt with, especially now that most of the decks or the mid-range decks are aligned to beat the mono red matchup. And any questions or comments regarding for this one, just let me know in the comment box below so we can have a good discussion. And of course, if you have early access to this on MTG Arena, I suggest you can try this build and can see how it goes it well to the new metagame of Standard with the Duskmourn set. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and the notifications on, and see you on the next upload.